So I believe that everybody on this stage has to say at least one word in French, so bonjour. Dear Melanie Vogel, dear Thomas Weitz, dear European Greens, my dear Belarusians, I have come here to tell you how I feel at such an important moment in the world's history. I'm happy to be with you here today in this cozy and almost family atmosphere. I feel your passion, your energy and desire to change the world. I'm happy that I'm not in a torture chamber like so many of my friends. And I'm happy that my kids are with me and not in an orphanage. But I'm not happy that my husband is still in prison and I have no idea if he is alive. I'm not happy when I read about another wave of arrests in Belarus and innocent victims in Ukraine. And I'm not happy that I can't go back home to my beloved Belarus, which has been held hostage by a dictator for 30 years already. A few years ago, I was an ordinary housewife, raising two wonderful children, and I had no interest in politics. And the very idea of going on a stage like this was a nightmare for me. But life sometimes puts us into roles we never imagined for ourselves. When my husband, Sergei, decided to run against the dictator, he was locked up immediately. And to support him, I put my name on the ballot for president. And I did it out of love. And the dictator registered me as a joke. No one will ever vote for a woman, he said. But guess what? I won. We Belarusians won, and it could be a happy end story, but dictators are cowards. They don't accept defeats. They never play by the rules, and they help each other. When Belarus dictator was on the brink of collapse, another one, Putin, came in to save him. They drowned our movement in violence and terror. And this terror didn't stop for a single day since then. As I am speaking today, more than 1,500 political prisoners are behind bars in Belarus. Every single day, 15-20 people are being detained. More than 70,000 passed through torture, KGB interrogations, sleepless nights in jail. And so many died. And my kids don't stop asking me when their daddy will come back and why he never replies to their letters. And they haven't seen him for 4 years already. And believe me, I had thousands of moments when I was ready to give up and to stop my fight. But every morning I wake up and I think about those freedom fighters who are behind bars and those who passed away, and among them are there many green activists. I think about Witold Ashurak, political and environmental activist. He died under unclear circumstances in the penal colony, and no criminal case was opened over his death. I think about Stepan Latypov, the most famous arborist in Belarus. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison. He couldn't handle tortures and attempted suicide by stabbing himself in the neck with a pen. I think about Pavel Nazdra, an eco-activist who led the Green Watch movement in his hometown in Mazyr. He received 2 years in the colony, and we don't know his whereabouts since then. I think about Alexander Belov, who led an organization tackling food waste. He was sentenced to 5 years. And I am grateful to Lisa Badum from German Greens, who took a symbolic good parenthood over Alexander. I also think about Andrei Kuznechik, journalist and bike activist, promoter of eco-transport. For more than 2 years, his children grew up without their daddy. And thinking about them gives me energy to fight for their own freedom, but also for freedom of Belarus. Because I know they count on me, and they count on you. We must not let them down. I also think about all Belarusians who went to fight for Ukraine. We understand that fighting for Ukraine, we also fight for freedom of Belarus, because the fates of our countries are intertwined. Without free Ukraine, there will be no free Belarus, but also vice versa. Without free and independent Belarus, there will be no safe Ukraine. And both our nations are fighting against the same enemy, the axis of dictators. Both of our nations are fighting for the same future, the European future. For a future where they can live without fear, where people are not thrown to jail for their views, where free elections, rule of law, justice, equality, and human rights are not just words, but imperative. In your countries, these simple things may be taken for granted, but in ours, it is something we risk our lives for. Dear Greens, as you enter the electoral campaign for the European Parliament, I call on you to become champions of democracy, to be advocates of all those who risk their lives and their freedom in the name of values we all stand for. So include support for Ukraine and democratic Belarus in your election program, because the fight for freedom is a global one. Provide Ukraine with everything it needs. The victory of Ukraine will be the ultimate defeat of Putin and Lukashenko. We must counter Putin's attempts to use corruption, intimidation, espionage, and fake news to interfere in Europe and undermine its institutions. In this election campaign, some may propose that we sacrifice our principles for the sake of cheaper gas or oil and a comfortable life. However, what comfort can there be when tyranny is at our doorstep? Some forces might propose to make a deal with dictators. Let's give them what they want, they might say. But dictators cannot be appeased. Dictators cannot be re-educated. It's not our war, some might say. It's wrong. It's our common war, for common values and for common future. From some politicians, I often hear about fatigue. Fatigue? Tell about fatigue to Ukrainians in the snowy trenches. Tell about fatigue to Olесь Beliatsky, our Nobel Peace Prize winner, kept incommunicado in Lukashenko's cell. They don't have the right to feel fatigue, so neither do we. So I ask you to be promoters of the European Union as a community of values. The European Union that stretches from Lisbon to Vitebsk, from Dublin to Kharkiv. Belarusians want to be part of European family, and we want to hear from you when the moment comes, the EU doors is open. We want Belarus not only to be democratic, we want Belarus to be green. We need to diversify energy supplies and to get rid of this shameful dependence on Russian fossil fuels. Dictators don't care about the people or the planet. They only care about their own survival. They see natural resources as a cheap fuel for a machine of repression and war, and this must stop. Due to loopholes in sanctions, the regime has not just preserved the export of wood in the European Union, but even increased it, and this must stop. Our precious forests are being felled, while nature reserves become residence for Lukashenko's hockey team members, and this must stop. We must stop nuclear weapon and nuclear blackmail. First, they built a nuclear power plant which ignores safety norms on the EU border. Now they deployed Russian nuclear weapons on our territory, and this must stop. We can't trust dictators to protect the environment when they won't even care for their citizens. And I applaud to the EU's decision to suspend cooperation with the official Minsk and start working with democratic forces. We are ready to present our roadmap for green development. The green economy concept for Belarus includes 10 innovative proposals for a sustainable transformation. And it is a part of our broader strategy to bring Belarus back to Europe. The struggle for greener Belarus cannot be separated from the fight for human rights and democracy. And these are two sides of the same issue. As we advocate for political prisoners and fundamental freedoms, we pave the way to a substantial future. Same as we advocate for democracy, we enhance our own security. If tyranny is not contained, it spreads like cancer. Therefore, your support for Belarus and Ukraine is not charity. It's investment in our own security and sustainable Europe. But my dear friends, I came here today not to lecture you. I came here to say thank you. Thank you for keeping Belarus in focus. Thanks to members of Greens in European Parliament who became symbolic godparents for Belarusian political prisoners. Viola von Kramon, Jakob Dalunde, Marketa Gregorova, Sergei Lagodinsky, Eric Markart, Niklas Ninas, Terry Reintke, Tineke Strik. Thank you for this. And every parliamentarian can join this campaign today and adopt a political prisoner. Tell their stories, send them words of support, or help their families. And on March 25th, we call on you to join the Day of Solidarity with Belarus. Thank you for your resolution from December in support of the Belarusian Green Party, which was liquidated by the regime. Belarusian Greens continued their brave work from exile. Thank you. And thank you for cooperation with the Alliance Green Belarus, aimed to prepare our country for the green transition. And one of these leaders, Irina Suhi, is among with us today. Thank you. Dear friends, as we face the decisive moment of our history, we must stay united, and we must be bold. We must strengthen our institutions and defend them from those who try to undermine our unity. As my fate brought me to the front line of the struggle for Belarusian democracy, Fate brought you to the front line of Europeans' democracy. And together, we are on the front line of struggle for Europeans' future. And let me assure you, we will not stop. Belarusians will not stop until all political prisoners are released, until every Russian soldier leaves our country, until we hold trials for crimes against humanity, until we get our country back. Lukashenko will be defeated. Putin will be defeated. Ukraine will win. And Belarus will finally return to the European family of nations. And this road ahead may be long and difficult. But thanks to you, thanks to your passion, thanks to your continued support, I know that we all will win. Merci.